Welcome my friends, welcome back to Project TAS. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you've watched any of my previous videos, thank you for returning to my channel. Today we're doing another Blake 7 episode review from Season 3. As always, I will point out that this review will inevitably touch upon certain plot elements of this episode, and may even reveal developments for the series of Blake 7 as a whole. So if you haven't seen this episode, or anything else in terms of Blake 7, a huge spoiler alert is in order in case you wish to do a bit of Blake 7 catch-up prior to watching this review. You have been warned. Right, let's get to it, shall we? From the frying pan into the fire. Avon and Dana have literally just teleported back up to the Liberator, leaving Dana's father and sister in deceased situ back on the planet Sauron below, and they now find that the haven they've been waiting to return to is crawling with Federation troopers, including an extremely posh Federation captain with an extreme Federation perm. It can only be Powerplay, following on directly from the last word uttered from the cliffhanger we were teased with at the end of Aftermath. If I was Avon, after everything I've been through on Sauron, I think I'd be flinging my hands in the air and say, you know what, I don't care. I'm Avon, someone who's wanted by the Federation, I'm happy to be arrested, just let me have a bit of kip for a few hours. Mind you, I'm not a space hero like Avon, and unlike Avon, I like a full quota of sleep. Luckily, Avon is a space hero and manages to think on his feet to convince the posh captain and his gang of much shorter, much older, much uglier troopers not to kill them immediately. When they're taken in front of Zen, Avon manages to get himself knocked out, which, when you combine this with the previous episode Aftermath, I think is about the third time in the last 2 days he's been knocked out. He gets this latest wallop from the posh Federation captain after he makes out that he's going to take out a weapon. This may seem a little contrived at the time, but there is a reason lying around the corner. One you probably know already, but let's have some fun here. After well over a full episode's length, we get to see the status of another one of the pre-existing crew, none other than Villa, being his heroic self as ever. As Zen would later state, Villa declares he is in great peril, and as such, his rescue is the highest priority. I personally found this hilarious, how a computer interprets the incessant, almost pathological whinging of an individual is to do exactly what they say. Or maybe it's more the emotionless, reasoned interpretation by Zen of Villa's hugely emotional panic attack. We also meet up with Callie on a hospital ship. She's being treated for facial burns we didn't see on her in Aftermath, by wearing half a goldfish bowl over her face. She's making pleasantries with a nurse who looks like she's been plucked from a First World War hospital. Callie has had the incredible good fortune of being assigned a bed in the very posh section of the hospital ship, or at least this is what it looks like, given that none of the other patients seem to be in too bad a shape, yet the amount of time the nurses spend with each patient seems suspiciously long. Unfortunately, being in the posh section means that for the second time in 2 episodes, an incredibly unlikely encounter between one of the Liberator crew and Servalan takes place. The nurse introduces Servalan to the other patients as if she's in charge of a focus group, and Servalan's acknowledgement of the nurse's kindness sounds about as genuine as Avon might sound if he told Villa that he loved him. There's then this exchange between Callie and Servalan, which isn't anything majorly special, other than it's similar to the exchanges between Avon and Servalan in Aftermath, in that we've never seen these particular characters talk to each other before. There isn't as much kissing between Servalan and Callie, though. Meanwhile, on the Liberator, Avon and Dana decide they're somewhat nonplussed for being knocked out, to say nothing of the fact that these troopers are squatting on the Liberator, and the fuzz are taking a long time to evict them. This part of the episode on the Liberator is an entertaining mix of evasion by our heroes, using clever means to misdirect the baddies, and continual sniping between the baddies, who stand out more than your average bad guys, thanks to excellent performances by Stephen Pacey as Tarrant, I'd expect no less from someone who's about to be announced as a series regular, and Michael Sheard as Clegg. We also find ourselves witnessing a murder mystery unravel before our eyes, as 2 of the Federation troopers are bumped off by an unknown assailant, whose point of view we get to experience as he approaches his unassuming victims. We know that the killer is someone the victims know and trust given their reaction to him, so we can guess that it's going to be one of the other troopers. But in spite of a few clues that suggest that Tarrant is not all that he seems to be, I personally never suspected him as being responsible. So when he suddenly announces himself as the killer and makes it clear that he's now going to help Avon, as much as I realised that Tarrant was going to have to become a good guy at some point along Season 3, I didn't think it was going to happen this way. I certainly never thought of Tarrant as someone who go around covertly murdering people in cold blood, even if they are Federation scumbags. So the twist kind of worked in that I was completely fooled, and it's an interesting way of suddenly giving Avon a new ally. But given what I know about Tarrant, this seemed out of character. Well, it wouldn't do for this episode, since this is the first time we meet him. So he was out of character for the rest of the time he was in Blake 7? It's similar to what happened with Callie. She was portrayed as a warrior woman in her debut episode Time Squad, but afterwards she was a lot more reserved. The episode is generally entertaining, and it's an interesting premise for Avon and Dana to be slinking around on the Liberator, avoiding Federation guards. It's done better here than it was in Bounty, when Jenna was slinking about taking on the Amagons, probably because the bulk of this episode is dedicated to this plot point, as opposed to only half of it in the Season 1 episode. The plot strand I wasn't too bothered about was the one with Villa, which I feel bad about saying, as I like Villa, and the beginning of his story starts wonderfully. 1 minute we hear him remonstrating with Zen, along with Tarrant and Clegg on the flight deck, and then we fade into his actual plight. We haven't seen him since the opening 5 minutes of Aftermath. This is the longest we've gone in Blake 7 without our cowardly lockpicker, and he's pretending that he's with 10 other heavily armed men in a hopeless attempt to scare off whoever he hears in the bushes is brilliant. What I wasn't too fussed about were the various characters he meets. They're acted well enough, but they're not all that interesting, although I found the name High-Tech's unintentionally hilarious when it's uttered. If anything, it might have been more interesting to watch Villa wandering around the wilderness he's on, just listening to him relentlessly commenting on everything he's doing and thinking, using other hilarious means to dissuade anyone attacking him. I also found the revelation that the people are being rounded up to have their organs harvested a tad unbelievable. It didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the aftermath of the battle. Survivors just being picked up to be killed and make unwilling donations. Yeah, maybe unbelievable isn't the right word, I just didn't like it. It seemed like a naff way of trying to drum up some last-minute peril for Callie and Villa. I mean, why bother healing Callie of her burns if they're only interested in what's inside of her? My opinion only. Let me know what you thought of this bit. Overall, I enjoyed this episode. I know that Paul Darrow wasn't too happy about the fact that both Tarrant and Dana are welcomed aboard as crew members as soon as the Liberator is recaptured and Callie and Villa are saved, and I see where he's coming from. He's known Dana for between 1 and 2 days by this point, and only a short while ago he thought Tarrant was a Federation officer who was trying to kill him. For all he knows, he is a Federation officer, and he just got rid of the other troopers to enjoy all the reward money for himself when he hands the Liberator and its crew over to the Federation. I've read that Paul Darrow felt that Avon assumed he could kill Tarrant and Dana at any time, as he was smarter than they were, and this was how he played the scene when their voice patterns are recorded by Zen. Maybe the induction for Dana and Tarrant could have waited for another episode or two, although if we're declaring them the new kids in town, then maybe we shouldn't muck about and just get on with it. Another one that almost gets 3 stars, but the Villa and Callie plot isn't nearly as good as the Avon Dana Tarrant plot, and Servalan's presence is surplus to requirements. I will also quickly mention that Dana strangles Clegg to death by hugging him across his shoulder and chest. Not a very convincing death, but perhaps it was deemed too violent to show Clegg's demise the way it was intended. Still, I'm happy to give it a strong 2 stars and am pleased with the way Season 3 has started. Although what's round the corner doesn't really bear thinking about. That concludes my review on Powerplay. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, please share this video, please subscribe to my channel, and please check out my other Blake 7 episode reviews. And I was wondering, Section Leader Clegg, are you jealous of the fact that you cannot grow anywhere near as beautiful a perm as Tarrant can? 'Cause I bloody well am. Cheerio.